Welcome to Pegwarmers. I'm Kevin, and I'm here to talk about toys, along with my emotional support animal, Big, here. We are here to talk about anticipation in toy collecting. If you think back to anticipating things about toys, you got to go all the way back to when you're a kid. Making your Christmas list, you're probably looking at the card back to a G.I. Joe or a Ninja Turtle or a Star Wars figure, and you're looking at that cross-sell art. Look at all these other figures, whether it's a painting of them or a photograph, and you're just so excited. You make the list. When I was a kid, I would put them on in the order I wanted them. My mom would know the characters at the top of the list were the ones I wanted the most. So that way, if she couldn't find somebody and she had to go down the list, she kind of knew the order, right? I wanted Chuckles more than I wanted Raptor, but really I wanted Gung Ho. Oh, hello, puppy. You have a lot to say about anticipation. So I was always hoping my mom could find the ones that I really wanted, or maybe that Santa had those guys, extra ones in his inventory from all the toys he would make. I still remember being in first grade. My best friend drew a picture of Serpentor. We were asked to create an image, draw an image of something we wanted for Christmas, and my friend drew Serpentor. Now this has got to be 1988, going into 1989. And my buddy draws Serpentor, and I'm like, he's not in stores. You're not going to get him for Christmas. But lo and behold, he did. He did get Serpentor, which was very exciting for him. Hello, puppy. Are you okay? You're very invested in this story and very vocal. Do we need to cut? Do you not want to be here? Okay. I traded one co-star for another. Here's Glenn, my other emotional support puppy. I think he's a little bit quieter. So, basically what I'm talking about here with that anticipation is now, it transitioned from that, waiting for the right toy at Christmas to, being an adult collector. Going to the store, hoping they have the figure you want on the peg, right? As a teenager and an young adult, and then, a full-blown adult collector, checking for waves, right? And you get there, and the short-packed figure's gone, and then you hit another Target, or another Toys R Us, or another Walmart, trying to find that right store that has the inventory you want. But now we've transitioned completely into new territory. Everything's pre-orders. Since COVID, basically, everything is a pre-order, and sometimes the pre-orders are really, really far in advance. I'll give you an example. The Super 7 Thunder Tank, which is actually in this box right here, waiting to be opened so I can do an episode on it. I ordered it on February 2nd, 2021, and received it on March 9th, 2023. 2 years later? I mean, in that time, I got married and I moved. Hello, Glenn. Oh, I'm glad you're here to help make me feel better about my toy collecting woes. Oh, he's a good puppy. It's insane how long it takes, and I get it. I understand the whole production cycle. There's not some way they can speed this up, but it makes for so much anticipation. You are just waiting and waiting and waiting to get this item, and so it has time to build in your mind, and for you to be excited about it and plan for it and look at your shelf and think, oh, it's going to look great here. I'm going to finally complete this team. And then sometimes things don't quite show up the way you expect. Look at the recent Super 7 Silverhawks, where people are not quite happy with the paint deco on the faces. They don't match the digital render. We're ordering these toys from a Photoshop image, a digital sculpt that's been digitally painted. It has not gone through the factory process at all. And sometimes the results aren't quite what we wanted. It happened a lot with Matty Collector, and figures would come with joints assembled backwards, right? But at least we were getting the figures we wanted, and we had seen at least a sculpt of it, and we were buying those about a year in advance. But and oftentimes then we would only see the first couple figures. We wouldn't get to see the full year. So it is a very interesting day and age we live in collecting. Some other examples: G.I. Joe Classified's Lieutenant Falcon. Everybody's been kind of disappointed with his head sculpt. I can't even remember if I ordered him. And if I ordered him, I don't think he's arrived yet. I should probably look into where I placed that pre-order. And if I didn't pre-order him, I should probably be ordering him now. I order most G.I. Joe Classifieds right away. But then later on, I can't remember if I ordered them through Pulse or Big Bad Toy Store. But I get excited to get them, and it just kind of creates this weird anxiety of when are they going to be here? How cool are they going to be? It's just a strange state to be in when it comes to collecting. I just recently got the HasLab Sky Striker, and I did a review of that, and that was one of those things where I had built it up in my mind to be this fantastic thing, and it's a really nice toy, but it's not anything that wildly above and beyond the regular Sky Striker, that vintage Sky Striker. It's got a few little perks, a little bit, less decals as far as it's got a lot of tampoed paint. The seats are a little better. Some of the deco on the inside's nicer. It does have a really cool flight stand, and it's got some more display options to go with it, but it's not that much different. And in my mind, somehow, I just thought it was going to be even better. And so when I opened it, I was just slightly let down. No real reason. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a fantastic toy. But I somehow just imagined it was going to be way cooler than the vintage one, and it's a little step above. Even like Power Rangers Lightning Collection, we look at digital renders, get excited about these new figures that are going to be released, and then oftentimes there's missing paint apps, and a team comes with 3 of the characters having white belts and 2 of the characters having silver belts, and it's just a little imperfection. It's not the end of the world, but it's just disappointing when that stuff happens, right? It's so disappointing. Toys are supposed to be fun, and they certainly are, but sometimes the excitement builds up, and it really does kind of hurt the end result. And I don't know how to try to tone down the hype. Waiting months and months for pre-orders, sometimes years, really does sometimes hurt the end result, the end product. When it comes in, it has to be a letdown because it's been built up. It's happened with movies. Think about the Star Wars franchise. How excited we were for the prequels. How excited we were for the sequels. And they just never quite live up to the originals. It doesn't mean that they're garbage, but somehow they just can't live up to the expectation we set for them. And it seems to be happening to me with toys. So I'm trying really hard to lower my expectations and just wait for the thing to come and try not to build it up beyond what it could possibly ever be. At the end of the day, it's a lump of plastic with some paint on it. It's not gonna, change the world if the paint is right or the head sculpt is gorgeous or a little bit frumpy. But, it matters to us because we're collectors, and to just kind of be able to enjoy toy collecting more, I'm trying to reduce my expectations there. I hope that some of you guys can connect with this message and understand what I'm talking about. We've all been there where something was an impulse buy and it was a letdown, but it's really bad when something is like something you really desire and you wait and wait and wait, and then it's a letdown. That's when it really kind of is disappointing, the most, just the worst. How do the toy companies do it back in the 80s and 90s when we would mail away for something, wait 48 weeks for delivery as a kid, and it still always impressed us when it got there? I remember getting the Hooded Cobra Commander in the mail and waiting so long that I almost forgot it was coming. And it showed up in that little tiny brown package that was super generic, had no G.I. Joe markings on it, and inside, bam, was this awesome figure with the red-backed file card, and it blew me away, right? Things like that would happen, and now as an adult collector, you would think I could manage my expectations better than I did as a kid, but somehow I feel more let down by the stuff that I order today, sometimes, than I did back in the day. I think Matty Collector did a pretty good job of managing expectations. I really liked how when we would subscribe, we only saw some of the figures. That may have annoyed some people, but I really do think they delivered for the most part. There were some mix-ups with those joints and things like that, but overall, I was always really impressed with the character selection, and when it was going to be a little bit more obscure and things like that, they tended to do those like mini subs. It was just like Princess of Power stuff. Maybe the Fighting Foemen and perhaps the Star Sisters were some of the biggest letdowns in that line, and they're not necessarily bad figures. I just didn't really have a strong connection to them. So then, for them to be a 3-pack and be kind of like an expensive item, those things are probably the closest thing to a letdown, but my expectations on those were already low. So when they came in, I just wasn't really that excited to start with on those. But I feel like that line overall really did meet my expectations. Now, I've already mentioned in this episode that I thought Matty Collector's Motu Classics line really did a great job with managing expectations. Part of that was there was a lot of communication with the toy brand and the end users, and the brand manager was a big toy fan and kind of knew how to speak our lingo. He never made a big deal about a foot stand. That was a kind of a meme from a Hasbro G.I. Joe fan stream at one point, but the Castle Grayskull, kind of the centerpiece of the Motu Classics line, one of the toys that met my expectations perfectly. This toy was designed and shown off in a B-sheet, like a drawing. There was a foam cutout of it at one point, and we had to back it, without actually seeing the final thing. And I actually backed it for 3 of them because I really wanted to see it happen. I love Motu Classics, and I really wanted a Castle Grayskull for it. Another toy they did for that line then was Snake Mountain, which I definitely wanted, but I didn't need it as bad as I needed Castle Grayskull. So when that came out, and it actually wasn't made by Matty Collector and Mattel, it was made by Super 7, based on a project started by Mattel. I backed that for 1, but it was a bigger item. But that original Motu Classics Castle Grayskull is fantastic, and like I said, they showed it to us, and they took fan feedback. They lowered the drawbridge to accommodate Battle Cat and He-Man because fans wanted that. It had so many fun little details in it, and they didn't skimp on it. There were some additional accessories they wanted to try and pack in with it that couldn't be priced out. One of the things that some fans didn't like was there was like a hole in a floor plate for a flying stand to peg in. Some fans made a manhole cover, that a custom manhole cover that they sold for that if you didn't want to display it with the flight stand inside the castle, which was a little strange. But it looked so good. The features worked. It was a fantastic toy. It'd be one of the last things I'd ever get rid of from my toy collection here. I think I would keep it longer than my vintage Castle Grayskull because it looks so good. You could use the Classics one with vintage toys, and it would work out fairly well. Maybe the throne's a little oversized, but for the most part, it just is a bigger, more magnificent Castle Grayskull. And man, I love that toy. That toy met every expectation. Snake Mountain, which I mentioned, also was a really good toy. I think because Snake Mountain has like sort of multiple forms, the cartoon form and the old toy, and they were sort of trying to smush it together. I was a little bit more worried about that. Snake Mountain has a lot of pathways on the front, and I knew they were never going to be able to like make it so you could display guys on those steps, and they actually shrank Snake Mountain slightly before it was produced to make it be able to fit in the box and hit certain cost points, and I was worried that the steps in that path would shrink too much. But you really can't display guys on it. That's probably my biggest disappointment with Snake Mountain, but I knew that was going to be the case. For Snake Mountain, for something that big and that wide, I would prefer if I could use it as the backdrop for my entire, like, evil faction figures and have them, like, on that path. But really, you can kind of put people at the top of the path and at kind of the center portion, but you can't really have guys lining the steps. There is that old Masters of the Universe poster with Grayskull and Snake Mountain, and there's sort of like a ravine and guys coming down both sides. You can't really use that. You can't do that display with this, and that's ultimately what I would love. And I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that with it. So my expectations were pretty much right on par with that toy. It turned out great. So both of those toys, one from Mattel, one from Super 7, really hit my expectations just right. Both of those toys really met my expectations and were fantastic. I have another Hasbro example with G.I. Joe Classifieds, where the first wave of that toy line I was very excited for because it's G.I. Joe and it's new, but it didn't quite meet my expectations. We had the Nerf guns, we had the Techno boots. It just wasn't quite the feeling I want, but over time, they figured out what fans want, and the figures have become more and more faithful representations of the vintage figures for most characters. And I think that has really hit most people's expectations, right in that like sweet spot. Obviously, Falcon's head, isn't great, but it's a prime situation. Dusty, Bazooka, Zorana, the Crimson Guard. I mean, they're just knocking it out of the park, and lots of new figures that have been announced, and that are up for pre-orders now with like Shipwreck and Torpedo and Scrap Iron. These figures look fantastic. Now, they could be letdowns. The figures might not be as great as the digital renders, but I think they've got it figured out. And I think that they're really going to hit the marks when they finally come in. A lot of the Super 7 Ultimates that I have bought, I have not opened. I started collecting them sort of as I was transitioning from my single life to my married life. I was dating my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and it was COVID, and these figures were coming in. I didn't really have a spot to display them, and the writing was on the wall that I was going to be packing everything up, so it was easier just to leave them in the package. So I've really not opened my Ultimates, Ninja Turtles. I have opened a couple of Ultimate Thundercats figures. I did a review of the glow-in-the-dark Mumra a while back, and but I'm really excited for the new Super 7 Ultimate G.I. Joe figures. I want to open them up and check them out, and I'm really, really hoping to not be let down by those. I don't think I will be, but fingers crossed. And of course, the Thunder Tank. This will be an episode soon. Sorry, didn't mean to bump the mic. This enormous box here. But anyway, this is a big box and a heavy box, and fingers crossed it doesn't let me down. I'm very excited to check out the Thunder Tank, so that will hopefully be an episode in the very near future. In the comments down below, let me know a toy that exceeded your expectations when you got it, because I do want to have something positive in this episode, and let me know something that didn't meet your expectation. It'll be interesting to see if some of you guys have the same toys that met or exceeded or didn't quite make it to your expectations. I'm going to be a vendor this weekend at a toy show at Antiques on the Evergreen in Woodbury, New Jersey. If you are in the PA, New Jersey kind of area, feel free to stop out. It's a nice little toy show at an antique mall. There's a great vendor there, Raiders of the Lost Ark, who has a lot of cool G.I. Joe and other retro toys at his booth, and he's kind of the guy running this show. There'll be a whole bunch of fun vendors. I actually did an episode on the past time that I vended there, and I'm looking forward to selling some stuff again this time. So feel free to stop by and say hi if you're in the area. Find something cool, whether it's from me or one of the other vendors. I would love for you to tell me that, hey, I'm somebody that watches your videos. It'd be really cool to get to meet up with a bunch of you guys. Special thanks to everyone that watches these videos. I really do appreciate your continued support. Hit that like button if you can. Share this video with another toy collector. If you've got the means to support the channel further, consider joining us on Patreon. There is bonus content on there from time to time, with the Discord being the big draw for the second level tier membership. Great group of guys on there sharing pictures of things that are new to their collection and talking toys. All right, thanks for hanging on the peg with me.